This is a special edition of Issues in Education, and we're coming to you live from Dressel Elementary, a brand new elementary school in the Lindbergh School District. And my guests are Dr. Vic Lenz, who is the Vice President of the State Board of Education, and Dr. Tara Sparks, who's Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. Thank you both very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So, Dr. Lenz, what is your job as Vice President of the State Board of Education?
Well, on the State Board of Education, of course, we're a policy board. We set policy for the state. We look at accrediting school districts. That's one of the biggest things that we do. The other thing that I think we get involved in a lot lately is preparation of teachers, because we're trying to work very hard to bring a better quality of teacher into the schools that we have. So we're running pre-tests for young students at the college level before we allow them to get into the teacher education program, to make sure that they have the background in both the subject area and the qualities that it takes to teach.
Mm-hmm. What are some of those qualities that it takes to teach and be good at it?
Tara, help me out on that one.
There are so many.
There are so many, yes.
You know, obviously there's content knowledge, needing to understand
right.
The content that you're teaching. But more importantly, I think it's building relationships with people, understanding children, developmental needs of children, being able to collaborate well. You know, in a lot of ways, our system of learning is just growing to be a much more collaborative environment. And that's something I know that we're looking at our own students to be able to master as they're leaving us as Lindbergh High School students. And it's something that we need to ensure that our incoming teachers have as a predominant skill.
Could you describe for us how that collaboration would look?
Well, so it's interesting. When I first started teaching, it was pretty much, close your door and you teach the way you want to teach. Here's your curriculum and go.
And lecture, right?
Oh, I was never a good lecturer, so I can say no to that. But I do know people who have mastered that skill, and they're very good at it. But the bottom line is, now in education, it really is a collaborative process, because we want to ensure that as kids move from grade level to grade level or content to content, that they're getting similar learning experiences, that they are ready for the next level of learning. So our teachers work together to analyze how students are performing. They create common assessments and determine, have kids really mastered the standards that we've determined are priorities? And then if not, how do we provide interventions for them? What supports are we going to put into place? And how does that look in your classroom? What can I learn from your strengths? What can you learn from mine? And then continue to support kids so that it's more this village mentality, that we're all in this together, and these are our kids, no matter whether they're in my classroom or your classroom, they're in our classrooms.
And do you think colleges are preparing teachers properly, or do you think there's some challenges there?
I feel like we have had an excellent opportunity to participate with beginning teachers over the last few years, and sadly it's not in effect right now. We have worked with University of Missouri, Columbia, and participated in the MU Fellows program. So we were seeing a lot of recently graduated teachers who had finished their student teaching, but they were working on a master's while they were placed as fellows in our schools, and we found them to be exceptionally prepared. They were able to collaborate well with their colleagues when they came in for that year of teaching for us. We've hired many of them because they have been the right fit for our programming. So we've had kind of a unique perspective in getting to see people coming right out of the college environment.
So Dr. Sparks, as Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, what is your job regarding the curriculum?
So basically, curriculum and instruction in Lindbergh is anything that touches students. So it's obviously working with teachers to write and design curriculum and evaluate whether or not that curriculum is being met. It's looking at assessments throughout the district, so whether those are state assessments or common assessments that our teachers are doing. It's the day-to-day instruction and intervention programs that we have in place. And then it's also providing support for special programming, alternative education, even our health services, guidance services. We really joke around that if it touches kids, it's coming through the curriculum and instruction office.
And how do you both feel about teacher salaries as they stand in 2017?
Teacher salaries need to be improved. Teaching needs to become one of the goal jobs for young people, instead of something. They used to say, well, if you can't do anything else, then go teach. And we want to get away from that as far as we possibly can, because we need the very best of our students out there to teach the young ones. That's our future. That's our future right there. And what Tara was talking about before, I mean, what we're trying to bring our kids up to do is to be ready for a career or college. And all of the things, the collaboration she was talking about, working together to communicate, those are all skills that you're going to use whether you're in college or whether you go out into the workforce to work in a technical education, technical area or something like that.
And Dr. Lenz, there are more female teachers than male teachers,
yes.
Correct? So what would it take to bring up teacher salaries?
Funding.
Funding, yes. Just pure and simple funding, plus I think just elevating the standard, the status of teachers, and that's something society has to do. We're trying to do that right now at the state level, at the State Department level, by doing those tests that I was talking about before we let teachers in. If you bring in the right people that you can expect to succeed, the chance of success is much greater. And so you have, as a result, a better quality of people, and that the higher you raise it, the better off we are.
And Dr. Sparks, what do you think it would take to raise teacher salaries?
Well, in Missouri, it's interesting, and I can speak specifically to Lindbergh because we are funded primarily by local tax base. Right. We are not a school district who receives a lot of state support for funding. So it's really about having a community that is in support of education and understanding the value. And we do have a community that understands the value of our teachers and understands the importance of retaining our teachers, because that's another key component to it, is that over time we want to ensure that our teachers are being valued for their experience, for their expertise, for their skills. So it's not just where they start, but also how do we continue to progress their salaries so that they feel that sense of value and importance.
What do you do if a young child comes into school and just doesn't fit in? That the child reports, I don't fit in, I'm not happy.
That's where we work with children individually. I heard Dr. Hamby and Dr. Shenecase earlier reference our guidance counseling department. And, kids can say that for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's a short-term problem. Sometimes it's a challenge that is ongoing for them, and we need to continue to monitor it. We have supports in place through our own guidance department. We have, obviously, the intervention supports academically as well. But we've done a lot with community partnerships over the last, probably I would say 5 to 10 years, with partnering with programming like Youth in Need and BJC in order to provide resources for students outside and even within the school community so that we can match kids' needs to programming. And then we collaborate with special school district for students who have more specific needs and require an individualized plan.
And Dr. Lenz, in all your years of being in education, how have parents changed, the young parent of today versus 20 years ago?
Oh. How have kids changed? How have teachers changed? We've all changed. Tara and I were just talking about that as we watched people walk by.
I mean, I read a lot about helicopter parenting.
Of course, I've been out of education as a business for 15 years, but when I started in teaching, teachers wore suit and tie every day.
I remember that.
Oh, yeah. And, in fact, I mentioned to Tara earlier how my principal at one point told me I had to go home and put a tie on. I had a nice turtleneck sweater on, and I had to go put a tie on. But times have changed, and young parents today, I think, are very busy in the world. I think they're very concerned with their kids, but also very busy, and they don't have the time that a lot of parents used to work with the kids at home.
Well, and I remember it was always sort of the authority figure and the student, but now it seems as though there's more negotiation.
I feel like there's more of a partnership that happens between parents and teachers. And one of the things that I think our teachers do extremely well is they build those relationships with their parents. We're here tonight on a curriculum night so that families are able to get to know the teacher, get to understand what is happening instructionally in the classroom, and know how to best reach out to that teacher when they're seeing concerns. I think technology has changed a lot of how we communicate. We're seeing, just observationally, I would say there's more communication happening via email and so forth rather than phone calls and
nobody
face-to-face.
answers the phone anymore, right?
That's not happening as frequently.
But that's okay. Texting is good.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately we're finding that, I've probably been guilty of helicopter parenting myself at times, but our teachers do a fabulous job of coaching parents through when they're starting to feel concerned. And, in some cases, parents are concerned and the teacher's saying, no, this is typical and we'll help you work through this. And in other cases, the teachers and the parents have the same concerns together, and so they work through and help that student. But I would say we have really good partnerships with our parents.
It's a much healthier situation that we have today than it has been in the past, for sure.
What would you do if there was a parent who was not engaged with the school, even though the children attended, and you wanted the parent to be engaged? What would you do?
You keep trying.
Keep trying. Keep working at it.
Mm-hmm. You can't force it.
And
you really can't force it.
That has been that way. I mean, I've been in schools since 1964, and we had parents that were not engaged then, and you did the same thing. You still keep working. Mm-hmm. You never stop working.
Remember Detention Hall?
Yes.
Does that exist anymore?
I had one once.
Dr. Sparks.
8th grade English. Ironically, I taught 8th grade English. Yes, not really. I mean, yes, there is a detention hall, but it's not like what you would see on Breakfast Club or something like that. It is, a student who makes a poor choice. And, the bottom line is we want our kids in school. We want them learning. And so you look at consequences that could be alternative to them missing learning opportunities. So an appropriate consequence sometimes is you're going to take some extra time after school and work on this because clearly you need to practice this a little bit more. Some students use it for attendance makeup and get work completed to make sure that they're getting their credits. But we really try to tie it back into having it be educationally appropriate.
So, Dr. Sparks, excuse me, 8th grade English class, what did you do?
I don't know. I probably passed a note or something. It was pretty benign.
What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that when I was assistant superintendent for curriculum in Lindbergh, one of the things we started was the alternative to suspension school, so that rather than a kid being suspended out of school, we had a place set up off campus with a certified teacher there, and the student had the opportunity to go to that school, work with the teacher, get their lessons on a regular basis so that they weren't just sitting at home. They were continuing to learn with assistance, and they could continue their credits. I mean, that's the kind of thing we talk about working. Anytime you have a student that's out of school or does something, you want to do whatever you can to keep them occupied and engaged.
And I would say, just in addition to that, we also have a really strong alternative education program. So for those students who a traditional high school setting is really not the right fit, we have alternative programs that students may attend a shorter period day, and they're working on credit recovery. And it's a different kind of education. It's more exploratory in nature. It's more integrated in nature. And it's the right fit for some kids.
Give an example?
Well, so we have a school called the Academy, which is on our Lindbergh High School campus. And students go there, and their classes are longer, but they have fewer classes, and it's for a shorter duration of time. So if I'm taking science, let's say I have physical science as a class that I need to take, that class only runs for a quarter instead of the full year, but it's a double period. It's a longer, more chunked specific time. So it's less, as a student, it's less for me to have to juggle in my workload. I'm more focused on a few classes at a time as opposed to 7 periods that I have to remember who needs what, and it's just an alternative way to provide instruction for kids.
So it's not that a child is not able, it's
Correct.
just a preference. Not everybody is suited for book learning or classroom learning, correct?
Some kids march to the tune of a different drummer, so we tried to put that together for them at the Academy.